Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Minding My Mental Health. I am Tenitria Williams, licensed professional counselor and host for this broadcast. If you've been watching, you already know what I want you to do, but I would love for you to hashtag live and put the city and state where you are watching from. I like to know where people are watching from. I also need you to help me out, and I need you to share this video to your page, share it to your friends, tag your friends and family. Let me know or let them know that the broadcast has started. So if you are a Christian, this is specifically for you. We're talking about something really important, but again, I'm going to give people a few moments. I'm actually going to share the broadcast myself because I think, number one, it's an extremely important topic for believers. I think it's an important topic about our mental health, and I want as many people as we can to watch this broadcast. Okay, so again, if you're watching, hashtag live, let me know where you're watching from. And here we go. I'm going to share this to a couple pages and groups. And I'm actually going to tag a few people myself. Going to wait. People are coming in, and I want to give people time to do that. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Today is Thursday, July the 10th, 2025. And we're really so thankful to be here. So again, I am going to give a few people time to jump on here. If you're watching, hashtag live, let me know where you're watching from. If you're not watching live, that's cool. You can hashtag replay if you're not watching live. You'll know you're not, that you are watching the replay because it won't have the word live at the top. So, okay, if you're watching, make sure that you share this video to your page and tag your friends, tag your family. We need to get people in here because this is a super important topic. I'm still sharing myself. So if you will give me just a moment, and we're going to get into this lesson. I feel like today's topic may be a little bit kind of controversial. It may trigger some people. There may be some things said that trigger your kind of your theology, if you will. So again, I think that's super important. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Today, we're talking about being angry with God. This is something that most believers would never actually admit out loud, right? We don't want to say, I'm upset with God, because we've been taught things like, you don't question God. You just have faith. And sometimes we're even taught to mask our emotions in the Christian world. And so oftentimes when people do experience this thing, they don't feel the freedom to actually allow themselves to express, hey, I'm a little bit upset, angry, or maybe confused with what is happening in my life and what God is doing in my life. And I see this a lot. And so I know it's not just a hit or miss thing. And in fact, the things that we're going to talk about today are very common. They are common things that people experience and they start to see in their life, or that I see a lot in across the board, right? And so we're going to talk about these mindsets that lead people to being angry with God, not just what leads people there, but how to overcome it, where it comes from, and how it impacts your mental health. Because again, this is Minding My Mental Health, and we want to look at how these mindsets impact our mental health. So, like I said earlier, people don't always admit in the church that there is some anger towards God, but many believers silently and sometimes not so silently carry disappointment or anger towards God. And it's not necessarily because they hate him. It's because they feel like they trusted God and something in their life did not turn out the way they thought it was going to turn out. And so that disappointment turned into anger, frustration, or confusion. Today, we're going to uncover 3 different deeply rooted mindsets that cause frustration with God and we're going to talk about how they impact our mental health, our emotional well-being, and again, more importantly, how to heal through faith, emotional honesty, and biblical truth. So if you will put that in there, say biblical truth, if we're talking about how to heal in this moment. And so again, I think this is a really, really important topic. I think people may even be nervous. I don't even see my people coming in. I think, again, this is one of those things where people start to hear that and they go, I don't want to admit that out loud. I don't want to say that I'm angry with God out loud. But the truth is, a lot of people are. And so we're going to go ahead and jump on into this. So the first mindset is called heaven's reward fallacy. Heaven's reward fallacy is one of the most common, I guess you would say, mindsets that lead people to this outcome, right? It is one of the most common. Heaven's reward fallacy is basically the idea or the concept that if I do everything right, then God owes me a good life. If I do everything right, God owes me a good life. This belief is that if I'm faithful and obedient and I'm moral and I do all these good things, not only a good life, but God is going to reward me with ease. He's going to reward me with specific favors and blessings. And here's the important part of this. It's hidden in a mindset that obedience is expected to guarantee a certain outcome, not just a good outcome, but a certain outcome. So if I obey, I'm going to get it this way. And the reason that this mindset can be so dangerous because it leads to a lot of frustration when things don't turn out the way you thought they had were the way you planned in your head or the way that you wanted it to look. The frustration comes when things don't go according to plan. Now, how does that impact you mentally? Mental health wise, it can cause anxiety or perfectionism, always feeling like I need to do more so that I can stay in God's favor. So you become in this cycle of performance driven activity and you become really engulfed in, hey, I need to check all the boxes. You are a person that checks the boxes. And so you go, okay, I pray, even your relationship with God. Now you probably could look at it and see you when you wake up and it's, you go, okay, check. I prayed. I read my devotional. I did this. I did that. I did this. And so everything today should just work out wonderfully. Why? Because you're thinking that your relationship with God is about you doing these specific tasks. It's a very task or transactional kind of relationship. Also, this type of mentality can lead to spiritual disillusionment, where good behavior doesn't yield expected results. Then you're confused. And again, you begin to question God. So you say, God, I did these things. I did this thing. What's happening? What's going on that it's not working the way I thought it was going to work? Okay. So I think, again, this is very important as we are looking at the disillusionment, because people all the time, they go, well, I thought I would be married by now. I thought I would have a better job. I thought I'd be further along in my career. I did all of these things. I went to college. I did an internship. I did these things. Why am I not making the kind of money that I thought I would make? Why am I not married? I went to church. I went to revival. I gave. I tithed. I was modest. I did all of these things. Why am I not married? Or again, why am I not in this place in my life that I thought I would be in? So it opens the door for you to begin to not only question God, but to just get really discouraged, really angry and frustrated. This mentality can also lead to a lot of shame and self-blame. Because shame and self-blame, because then because you're already thinking that your reward is based on you doing everything. So then you start thinking, maybe I failed. Maybe I didn't do something just right. Maybe I'm missing something. And so then you start to question, your own morality and all of those types of things, right? And so this can be very dangerous when we're really being honest with ourselves to go, I don't want to live a life that's performance based. Now, therapeutically, how does this impact us? This is a form of performance based worth, often rooted in childhood experiences where love has to be earned. It causes you to continue to need validation and approval from others. So if you notice that you have some of these mindsets of the heaven rewards fallacy, and again, what is that? It's the idea that God owes me something specific because I followed these specific rules. And so this type of thinking can be changed biblically if we start looking at it from a biblical perspective. In Psalms 34:19, it says, many are the affliction of the righteous, but the Lord delivers them out of them all. Now, first of all, the first sentence already eliminates this truth that just because I live a good life, that I won't ever experience something negative in my life, right? So it says the righteous are going to have many afflictions. So that is casting out this idea that just because I checked off all the boxes, that is going to guarantee that I have something specific. And then it says the second part of this is, I think, also very important. Many are the afflictions of the righteous. It says, but the Lord delivers them out of them all. It doesn't say a specific way that God delivers them out of them all. And so sometimes we have a certain outcome that we are expecting, and it has to look this way. And God delivers us, but it doesn't always look the way we thought our deliverance would look, right? Sometimes your deliverance may come through an exercise plan. If you struggle with health issues and you really want your deliverance to come through just kind of a supernatural weight loss, but God may give you a specific way to eat. Your deliverance doesn't have to come a certain way. You may want to get the surgery, the gastric sleeve surgery or all of that, and maybe you don't get approved for that, and you say, see, God didn't come through for me. But God says, I've given you another way to get the results without this specific procedure, right? And so you have to understand that your deliverance may not look the way you thought it would look, but it's still deliverance. And we have to learn to shift our mindset, because if we think it has to look a certain way, we can get caught in that resentment because it didn't show up the way we wanted it to show up. So the first mindset, as we've talked about already, is the heavens reward fallacy. If I do everything right, God owes me a good life. And that's just not biblically true. It's not biblically sound. Okay, so it does say that he will deliver us, but it doesn't say that he's going to deliver us a certain way. He will deliver, and that's the part that throws people off. We're looking for it a certain way. Faith is about trusting God's character, even if it doesn't look like we thought it was going to, even if the outcome doesn't look the way we thought it was going to look. We still trust his character. Okay, the second mindset is the sovereignty of God. The second mindset is about the sovereignty of God. What do we mean about the sovereignty of God? Now, this one right here throws a lot of people off. This causes a lot of people to be angry with God. And what we're not saying that they should deny the sovereignty of God. But the reason that this mindset is problematic is because people believe that because God is all powerful, nothing bad should happen. So the idea is, if God is sovereign and he has the power to stop bad things, why doesn't he? You have heard people say, why would God let this thing happen? Why would God let that thing happen? Why would God let me be abused? Why would God let me do these things, right? If God is sovereign, why didn't he stop the abuse? Why didn't he stop the sickness? Why didn't he stop my loved one from dying? Because if he had the power and he didn't do it, then that assumption leads to he's just not a good God. In fact, it almost sounds like he's a mean, sadistic God, almost like he was just standing there going, I'm going to watch him suffer. I'm going to hold back the power. Again, not the truth and not the character of God. This is a mindset that says God could, so why didn't he? And it often concludes with, if he didn't, that means he's not good. And it often leads people to have a callous heart towards God, or it leads people to sometimes even become atheists. They go, if that happened, there couldn't have been a God that was powerful enough to stop that. And so there must not be a God. Or if there is a God, I don't want anything to do with that God. If you would allow me to suffer or children to experience these bad things. This often arises after trauma, abuse, death, or a deep sense of loss. I'm going to say that again. This mentality often shows up after trauma, abuse, death, or a deep loss. I need y'all sharing this video. We need to get these numbers up. I think this is too important of a message for us to not get the word out. So go ahead and take a moment, tag some more people, share this video, like this video, make comments. If anything I'm saying is resonating, if you're understanding it, I want us to get more people on here again, because I think this is something that's super important. Okay. Right. So this mindset assumes that that God would shield us from all bad things. If God loves us, he will shield us from all bad things. But think about this. Even as parents, and we do love our children, we can't shield them from all bad things. Now, here's where it comes from. People go, yeah, but I'm not sovereign. I don't have all the power. God's supposed to have all the power, and he should shield us from all bad things. Well, the truth is that God's love doesn't mean that we will never suffer. Put that in the comment. God's love does not mean we will never suffer. John 16:33, it says, in the world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. And this mindset does not take into account that there is free will in the world. And this mindset also does not take into account the impact of sin in the world. Okay, so the reason that this mindset is so dangerous, if you're joining us, we're talking about the mindsets that lead people to be angry with God. The first one was the heavens rewards fallacy, which is the concept or the idea that if I do these things right, if I check off all the boxes, God is now obligated to give me a good life, a specific way I want it, not just a good life, but God is supposed to give me a life of ease. That was the first one. And we're now talking about the second one. And the second one is that if God is sovereign and he's good, he should stop all of the suffering in the world. And we were just saying that this mindset doesn't take into account free will, and it doesn't take into account the impact of sin. When sin entered the world, all the effects of sin came with it, meaning sin came and that opened the door for sickness, depression, poverty, all of the things that come in when sin entered, they brought their cousins with them. Okay. So how does this impact our mental health? Well, again, you start to feel unsafe. You start to go, well, I don't know if God will protect me or not. I don't know if God will be there for me or not. And you begin to question, and you start to have this spiritual disconnection. You have hypervigilance because you now feel like you have to be the one on guard. You feel like, hey, I don't know if God will protect me. And so you start saying, I'm going to protect myself. The events plus spiritual betrayal often create, or feelings of spiritual betrayal create a very deep wound. Again, you see this a lot after trauma, after a deep loss. People begin to say, why would God let this happen if he could stop it? Either there is no God or he's not a good God. And we have to be wise enough to be able to respond to that. When people are saying those things, you have to go, wait a minute. When sin came in, it opened the door for those things. God never promised us that we would live a life without any suffering, without any pain. But God promised us that he would be with us through it all. And him being with us is our sign that we can make it through it. Okay. God promises that he will be with us and help us to get through it. Okay. It also mentally can lead to emotional numbness, avoiding church, avoiding prayer, being disconnected from God. And so instead of running to the person or the thing that can help us, we run away from that. We run away from God, the person who actually has the ability to heal, the person who has the ability to walk us through those things. We run away because now we're feeling betrayed. Okay. So what is a biblical example of this? John, the 11th chapter tells us a story about Lazarus. And when Lazarus died, Jesus got there after Lazarus had died. They told Jesus about Lazarus before Lazarus died. He had time to get there, before Lazarus died, right? But Jesus did some other stuff. And once he got there, Lazarus was already dead. And one of Lazarus' sisters said, if you had been here, you could have stopped this. That is that mentality of, if you had just done this, I wouldn't have to go through this. But again, Jesus doesn't always prevent things, but he's there with us to get through it. And what he did was raise Lazarus from the dead. And he says, I'm doing this to show, the power of God. And so a lot of people don't want anything bad. None of us want bad things to happen, right? But we have to understand that when bad things do happen, we can't just begin to believe that this is God's fault. It is almost human nature to start looking for something or someone to blame when things bad happen. Well, it was that person's fault. It was this person's fault. You literally see this in politics every single day. It does not matter what the tragedy is. People will find a way to point fingers at somebody. They're going to find a way to say, if this administration hadn't done this, or if that administration hadn't done this, and people are looking to blame somebody for this bad thing. It's like a human reaction where we want to have an explanation for everything. Well, that same thing happens when we don't have that human person to point to. They often point to God. Okay. Jesus didn't stop the death. He wept, and he also stood in grief. We see in that scripture where Jesus actually cried. That was his friend. And so we see this. God doesn't always prevent the pain, but he doesn't abandon us in it. And I think what happens is, again, in the middle of the pain, we get so frustrated that we abandon him, and he's the one that's going to heal us through the pain. One night I was in a class, and this lady was sharing about some abuse, and people begin to talk about how that they question when someone is abused. How could God allow that? And God began to speak to me, and he began to say, I always knew that my power was strong enough to heal no matter what happened. And so we often miss out on the fact that he delivers us out of them all. We get stuck on the fact that they were there in the first place. Again, going back to that original scripture where it says, many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivers them out of them all. We don't look at the deliverance part. We look at, why are those afflictions there? I'm a believer. I shouldn't have afflictions. And that type of thinking is going to lead you to a lot of disappointment, a lot of frustration, and a lot of anger, specifically towards God. Let me know if you guys have any questions or comments. Let me know if this is helping you. Yes, Courtney, people find a way to play the blame game. I'm going to give you guys a few minutes. Put your comments or questions in the chat. Let's look at, hey, Tracy, let's look at the third mindset that causes people to be angry or upset with God. The third mindset says God plays favorites. And how many of you have heard or even said, and I know I have, I say, I'm God's favorite child, right? Well, when we hear the word favorite, oftentimes we are thinking from a very different perspective than God, okay? God is massive in his ability. And so if God says that Nitra is my favorite, that doesn't mean that Courtney and Tracy can't also be his favorite. We think favorite means it's only one. And if he favors one, that's going to take away something from me. We think of favor in a limited shortage perspective. Well, God thinks favor like everybody can be my favored one. And favorite comes from favor, right? Favor. So it's like, hey, God says I'm not. And in fact, there is a scripture that says he's not a respecter of persons, which means he is not sitting there going, yep, that's my favorite. I'm going to get that one, or I'm not going to pay attention to that one. God loves us all. And as we are open and connect with him, right, we begin to see and receive that favor that he has available for us all. Okay. What happens in this mindset? We begin to compare our lives to someone else, and we begin to think somebody else either has it easier, has God's hand on them. And so we get angry. Think about Joseph and his brothers. God gave Joseph specific gifts, and his brothers were really jealous of the fact that they felt like their father loved Joseph more. They felt like it was unfair that Joseph got these positive things. That he got a coat, he got all of these things, right? And they got jealous in their heart because they began to see their father play favorites, right? God isn't like Joseph's father. But let's look at what happens though. What happens is God was setting them up so that Joseph could be in position to save them at some point. Well, instead of them being angry, they could have just been like, you know what? I don't understand everything, but I do know that we have access to our Father. Our Father loves us. We can connect with our Father more rather than being angry at Joseph. We could spend that time cultivating our relationship with our Father as well. I hope y'all picked that up. Instead of being jealous of someone else, you could spend the time cultivating that relationship with your Father. This mindset stems from comparison, and it comes from people looking at one life. This can also really come from if you have the heavens reward fallacy as well. And it's like, why am I not married? If she's married, why am I not married? Why did that person get healed and I'm still dealing with this thing? And this sounds like God blesses that person more than they bless you. But the truth of the matter is everyone has their own journey that we are walking. And our mental health, how does this impact our mental health? It causes low self-worth. We begin to believe that God doesn't love us as much. We begin to believe we're not worthy of something. We are defective or sometimes even unlovable. It can lead to depression, envy, isolation, avoidance, chronic insecurity. Oh my gosh, chronic insecurity. I don't know if you've ever been around someone who's chronically insecure, which means it doesn't really matter what you say. They find a way to get offended by it because they're insecure about almost everything. Well, I wanted to go over there with y'all. Well, we said anybody could come, but you didn't say specifically that I could come. We said anybody could come. We didn't list names. We said anybody, right? And so it's important that we don't give into that mindset. What's our therapeutic insight? This part begins to come up and shows when children or when people have childhood rejection issues or wounds, emotional neglect, they begin to feel this. And if you talk to people, they'll go, my mama didn't really like me, or my mama favored my brother, my mama did this. And so they begin to internalize that a lot. And they begin to feel like something's wrong with them or, that they are burdened in some way. So let's look at how to reframe this biblically. In John, Peter asked about someone else's future, and Jesus says, what is that to you? What is that to you? God's plans are not about comparison. They are about the fact that he customized a calling and a plan for us. We have to stick to our path, to our plan. Okay, what does that mean? God may tell two different people to start a business, and one person's business within the first month, it feels like it just takes off. I mean, it is just booming. Everybody's talking about it. And you're over here going, I'm still trying to figure out which email service to use to send out emails. And I have a list of 5 people on my email list, and only 3 people have bought anything from me. And so you can begin to compare yourself and go, no, wait. God has a plan for me. And if God told me to start this, God is going to perfect that which he began. And it says God began a good work in us and he's faithful to perform that, right? And so we have to remember that just because someone else seems like they blew up all of a sudden, or their business is doing great, or they got married, or whatever the thing is, doesn't mean that God's path for you is not good. You have to remember that this too is working for your good. There is so when we're talking about these different mindsets, I want us to understand that there is a difference between the written word and emotional assumption. There is a difference between the written word and emotional assumptions. What do I mean? Many times, all of these fallacies that we talked about, or all of these mindsets that lead to us being angry to God, often came because we assumed something that was not biblically sound. We assume that if I do all of these things, God is going to make my life easy and block me from ever having any pain or any suffering. That was incorrect or faulty information. Okay. Just because a desire is good doesn't necessarily mean that it's for us. Okay. Let's talk about this. I think it's really important. faith begins where the will of God is known. Faith begins. And so we understand that everything in the kingdom of God operates by faith. We often make spiritual or emotional assumptions. Oh, that's a good thing. That must be okay for me. We don't take time to say, God, is that what you want me to do? Going to college is a great thing. I went to college. I enjoyed college. I felt like I grew as a person in college, and I met some of my very favorite people in the whole world at college. Now, that doesn't mean that that's the path that God has for you, even though that's a good path for somebody. It could be the wrong path for someone else. Learning about real estate has made a lot of people millionaires, some people even billionaires. That doesn't mean that that's God's path for you. And so we have to say, God, what's your will for my life? Because then I can attach my faith to that. I have to say, what is God's will? I can't just assume because I want it doesn't mean that God is promising it. So again, faith begins where the will of God is known. Faith is not fantasy. And we must walk in word-based faith, not emotionally driven entitlement. Ooh, put that in the comments. We must walk in word-based faith, not emotion-driven entitlement. Okay. Now let's look at some questions. Let's explore this question, and then I want us to really talk about how to heal from this, because again, I know it impacts people. One of the ways that we heal from this is, one of the reflection questions I have down is, ask yourself, have I turned a desire into a demand? Have I turned a desire into a demand? You owe me this, God. I did this. I checked the box. This is how you know you're in one of these, even if you don't know exactly which one. If you start talking about all the things that you did, you are in one of these categories. If you start talking about all the things that God should have done, you are in one of these categories. Okay, so how do we heal when we're angry with God? How many of you can even acknowledge that you've been angry with God? Sometimes that's the first thing, and we're going to get into it. How can we heal? But first, let's see, is anyone willing to admit that they've been angry with God? Put a 1 in the comment if you're willing to admit you've been angry with God. Let's look at how we heal from this. Number 1, we got to be honest about it. Admit it honestly. God is not offended by your feelings. If you think back, Job suffered a great deal of loss, And it talks about it in that story and in that scripture. And we look at that. We look at those scriptures, right? Mary said this week, right? Because it's a real thing. If you guys are just joining, make sure you go back and catch the beginning, because I think it's really powerful. Yeah, you got to be honest about it and go, God, I was really angry with you. I didn't expect that. That took me off guard. It caught me off guard. He already knows you're angry anyways. But again, going back to Job, God had a dialogue with Job. He didn't just go, how dare you? He went, Job, where were you when this was happening? And they began to dialogue, right? That restoration came before Job got all that stuff back. God already knows that he's inviting you to be honest with him. Yeah, I'm seeing the ones, because most of us won't acknowledge that we've been angry with God. It's like, God, I did everything right. Or I thought I did everything right. Well, the truth is we should be very careful about thinking that we did everything right, because it's usually just not right. It's not true. There was a mistake. There was something dropped. But even if we did everything right, God is not a performance-based God. He's good because he's good, not because we checked all the boxes. Okay. Start with just acknowledging, God, I'm angry. I'm upset. He can handle your raw emotions. I remember working with families along the way that experienced some type of loss or grief or some type of tragedy. And oftentimes they would come in and they would talk about, being angry with God. And I would often go, that sounds like something you need to tell him. You need to have those conversations with God. And they would just kind of look at me and I was like, he can handle it. He can handle you saying, I was upset, I was angry, I was frustrated, I was confused. Okay, so the first thing is be honest about it. The next thing, and I think this is really, really important, grieve the expectation. Grieve the expectation. Loss is not always physical. Sometimes it is a physical loss of a person, but sometimes it was the idea of what you wanted. You wanted to be married. You wanted to have children. You wanted to have more money. You wanted to live in a different place and things didn't. Be able to grieve the loss of what you expected your life to look like. I told you guys last week when we talked about disappointment that when I had my daughter, I went into the hospital and I had an image of the way I thought that was going to go. I was going to go in and have this specific birth story. Like I wanted the immediate skin to skin. I wanted all of these things. I didn't want an epidural. I didn't want all of those things, right? It did not happen the way I went in wanting it and even expecting it to. And so when the doctor told me that I had to get a C-section, I began immediately to grieve the loss of my expectation. I went, this is not what I wanted. That's not what I wanted. That's not how I wanted the story to go. It's okay for you to say, I didn't want it to look this way. How can you grieve the loss? Again, sometimes it's physical, sometimes it's an idea, a concept, or a desire. You may want to write a grief letter. And what is a grief letter? A grief letter is basically a letter to the thing, person, or whatever, even if they're not still here, that you lost. Writing a letter saying all the things that maybe you didn't feel like you got to say, releasing that idea, saying goodbye. It's your way to create this idea of closure. Like, I don't fully understand, but I know this thing, right? So it's a written letter to the person or the concept that you are grieving. So you may go, I am writing a grief letter to the children that I thought I would have. And instead of being angry, I'm going to release you and say, I'm going to be a great auntie or a great whatever, right? And you begin to talk to that loss, and not just talking to it, you release it. Okay. Number 3, you have to rebuild. I think this is so important. You have to rebuild a safe connection or attachment with God. You have to then rebuild a safe connection or attachment with God. How do we do this? You have to begin to spend time with God, not with an expectation of fixing it, but just with an expectation of being in God's presence and allowing Him to heal. Because there really is, and I know this sounds cliche, but there really is healing power in His presence. God will begin to, just like with Job, there was dialogue back and forth. God will begin to explain things sometimes that you didn't understand, or you may not ever get that explanation. But God will begin to give you comfort and wisdom. I can remember one time really going off on God about something that I was upset about. And I was like, and they did this to me, and they did this to me. And I mean, I was going in. I was like, why did this happen? And, I was like really, really letting it all out. And then God says, it was so gentle. And God doesn't always speak super gentle, but in this moment, He was like, are you going to keep focusing on how they treated you or how I delivered you from that? And that moment was a huge pivot for me, because in that moment I went, you're right. I got stuck in feeling betrayed and feeling like and going back to the that I shouldn't have been the one to suffer in that way, because I felt like I did everything the right way, or I followed the rules, or I did those things. And God began to show me that was my deliverance. What you're fussing about, I delivered you from. And so you could stay stuck there, or you can receive the deliverance. But it was just in the presence of God that conversation happened, that breakthrough, that healing began to happen in His presence. So spending time with God, with worship, rest, tears, even going, I don't understand this. Can you at least give me some insight? Give me some wisdom, how to move forward, all of those things, right? And then number 4, release the outcome and embrace the presence, which is very similar to number 3. But release the outcome and embrace the present. You're not going in to get it. Like, hey, if I don't ever do this thing, I want you. I want your presence. I need you. I need your presence. Come on. I'm seeing people in the comments. Is this making sense? You guys have questions or comments? Okay, I'm going to give people a few minutes. Again, so it's saying I'm going in, but I'm not going in because I have all of these specific expectations or demands. This time, I'm coming in with gratitude. Hey, I'm so glad that I can come in and just be with you. I'm not coming in to get a husband. I'm not coming in to get the new position, the new job. I'm not coming in to fuss about anybody. I'm coming in to spend time with you. That begins to shift how you see things. And sometimes, oftentimes, what we actually see during these moments is the thing that we thought we wanted so much is either we didn't want it and it was a societal pressure. We felt like we should have it. I've had people to come in and they are grieving, not being parents. And then as they start going, they went, you know what? I don't even know if I wanted that for myself or if that's what everybody else told me our life was supposed to look like. And so I attached to that. And once they released that, there was so much freedom to go, I don't even think that's what I want. I don't think I want to go to college. That's just what everybody told me was the right path. But now that I know that I don't have to do this, so you're mad because you didn't get into a certain college and realize that that's not even what you wanted, right? And so release the outcome and embrace the presence. Okay. Release the outcome and embrace the presence. I want to know if you guys have any questions before we end this with prayer and announcements. I do want to share these announcements with you guys. I have 2 announcements. One announcement is if you have not signed up for your daily affirmations that will be delivered to your email address, you can get that. You can sign up and register for the Celebrating You daily affirmations. I'm going to put it on the screen. You can go there if you don't have time to write this down or whatever. Feel free. I can drop it in the comments or you can reach out to me and I can get it to you. It's $1.99 a month and you get your daily affirmation sent to your email in the morning time. Okay, so that's the first one. My Cash App is, I think it's just at Tenitria, but I don't know, Mary. I'll have to look real quick. Give me a second. It may be Tenitria Williams. That's why I know it's Tenitria, but I'm not sure if it's just Tenitria or if it's at Tenitria Williams. Or I'm sorry, $ Tenitria Williams. So if you are, would like to begin to receive daily affirmations to encourage you every morning, delivered to your email, make sure you register for that. It's $1.99 a month. And you guys already know the Wholeness Path is starting this month. I'm super excited about that. I still have room for people. So please, if you are a single woman and you say, maybe I've been a little angry because I'm single. I've been a little angry because I don't have kids. Or I've been a little angry because it doesn't look like the way I thought it was going to look. You want to join the Wholeness Path, which is a 6-month program designed to really look at our heart and begin to take about some of these layers. And we talk about some of this stuff in the Wholeness Path. We talk about mindsets that lead us to the frustration that we may be experiencing in our single journey. And also recognizing other things that may have happened in our life that may be holding us back from love. So basically, it is a 6-month program for Christian single women who desire to have a relationship, but recognize that emotionally there may be some things there that that's holding them back from really being open. And so if that's you, I really encourage you, don't, and it's not a hard class. It's not something, I say that, I don't know how your emotions are going to show up, but it's not a judgmental class. It's a very free, it's a very safe environment. And so if that's you, make sure you register. There's no need to keep on. And there have been people in each cohort that come through, and every time they go, wow, I didn't know I even needed this. Or I feel so much closer to God as a result of this. I thought I was coming to find a man, but I feel much closer to God as a result of this program, which is always my goal, that my life can help point people back to Christ. But more importantly, they are able to heal from some things that maybe have had them feeling down. So if you are a single woman, or if you know a single woman who could benefit from this, tell them, say, girl, join this with me, or join this for yourself. If you're not single and you don't want to, you don't feel like you need this. Now, I will say this as well. I have had people who are actually been married, to join the program, and they came out going, I'm a much better wife because I dealt with some internal stuff that I didn't know I needed to deal with. So again, if you are even a married woman, and you go, God, are you telling me to do this? Go for it. We're all about healing, so that our hearts can be open to healthy love, and that may even be needed for a married woman. Let me see. I'm trying to see if there are any more comments or questions before we end. Of course, you guys always know that you can contact me if you're needing some coaching or counseling. My number is 470-410-9790. Again, that's 470-410-9790. Or you can shoot me an email at my first name at gmail.com. So that's Tenetria@gmail.com. I hope that this was beneficial. Let me know what your takeaway was. And I know a lot of people kind of miss the first part of the teaching. I encourage you to go back and watch this. And if you know of someone who has dealt with a lot of loss, a lot of grief, disappointment, those types of things, and they may have expressed that they've been angry with God, or maybe they never expressed it, but you can see it, tag them in this or send it to their inbox. Sometimes people don't want to be tagged. Send it to them so that they can watch and be encouraged that God never promised us that we wouldn't have negative things happen in our life, but he did promise that he would be with us. He would deliver us through them all. We can't promise or determine how the deliverance shows up, but he is faithful. And also he has good things in store for us. And I think sometimes we get a little sidetracked because we believe that it's too late or it's too much damage being done. It's not too late for God to still show up big in your life. Can I get a witness? Can I get a witness? Yes, Sheila, you can obviously catch the replay and share this, tag friends and family that you know could benefit from it. So again, I'm going to give you guys just a few more minutes to see comments or questions. I just like to make sure that I don't turn off before everybody's done. I appreciate you guys. Share this video one more time to your story. If you haven't, share the video. Do all of those things that could help you. I look forward to being with you guys. I will be right back here next Thursday at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. You guys already know Minding My Mental Health. What is all this? It sounded very churchy today, right? Well, my audience is primarily Christian believers. And I think we have to be honest about these things in the church, because people are suffering and they're angry and they turn away from God. And emotionally, that has a huge impact on their mental health. They walk around, and we know physically when we get into a state of depression, high stress, anxiety, spiritual disillusionment, that our physical and emotional health suffers. And so we want people to be healthy, and we want you to come relating to God from a healthy, realistic perspective, so that you can basically receive what he has for you and walk in the things that he has for you to walk in. I hope this was a blessing to you guys. Thank you so much. And I will see you guys next Thursday at 12 p.m. Bye-bye.